everyone, and welcome to this edition of Oak Talks, our very own opportunity to create a platform for Oakland's small business community to talk about their hopes, their dreams, their challenges, and aspirations for running businesses here in the city of Oakland. I'm your host today. I'm Christy Johnston-Limon. I'm the Deputy Director of Economic and Workforce Development here, and welcome to K-Top Studios. So today we're going to be hearing from 3 locally owned independent businesses in Oakland. Why does that matter? Well, because businesses are the heart and soul of our city. Here in Oakland, we are a small business town in the town. Almost 100%, I would say about 93% of businesses here in Oakland are run by families, by independent business owners, and so they are a core part of why we call Oakland, Oakland. And so I'm glad you're here with us today. I also want to thank our partners, the Oakland Fund for Public Innovation. What they've done is they have embedded what we're calling cultural strategists into city government. And so today's Oak Talks series was brought to you by our cultural strategist, who is the owner of the Bay Area Organization of Black-Owned Businesses, BAOBOB. And with that, I want to welcome Yvette Holtz over here to give you a little bit more information about our cultural strategist and what you're going to hear today. Please welcome Yvette Holtz.
Thank you, Christy. It is amazing to see all these beautiful faces in the audience today. I'm so happy y'all are here. And I also just really honor the opportunity to work with EWD and your team, Christy. It's been amazing. And if it hadn't been, we wouldn't be able to have birthed this amazing program. Oak Talks is really the response to the question, how do we get qualitative information about the life and experience of small businesses in Oakland? And in my opinion, the best way to do that was to ask them directly and to give them the opportunity to really speak and be heard, and not just listened to, but heard. And that's what Oak Talks is. But our third speaker is a fourth generation, also business owner. He's also very engaged in community, and that's a common thread that I feel like is running through our talks today. Dan Pitcock is, in addition to the owner of Roberts Electric, he's the president of the Parks and Recreation Foundation Advisory Board here in Oakland. And so it's with both those lenses that he's going to address us today. Can you give him a warm welcome and welcome him to the stage?
I grew up in Oakland. I was born here a long time ago in '57. But I'm here because my dad was from Oklahoma, and he came here in the war and worked in the shipyards before the Marines would let him in. And he, coming from Tulsa in the 20s and 30s, he saw a different way of life. And he was much more of a person who respected everybody. And my mother's family was here. My grandfather worked at the Chevy plant, which is now Eastmont Mall. So they met, and my dad was at CCAC, and they started having kids, and they had to work. So they had to make a living. So my father's family were all electricians. And he went to the GI Bill. He was at Minnesota, and then he went to Cal. Then he was at the CCAC studying with David Park and other types of creative people. We've talked about how we've lost some creative institutions. So I grew up with that kind of framework for my life. Just kind of, it was part of what I lived. And my dad sold his motorcycle and started using the tools in 1957, 58, when my sister and I were born. I have 3 sisters, and he bought Roberts Electric in 1960. So Roberts Electric started in 1895 in San Francisco when lamps were all gas. And I do have one slide that somebody sent me. In 1906, they moved to Oakland over on East 12th, and I couldn't find the picture that somebody sent me from Roberts Manufacturing out on East 12th, but the workmen would take the trolley out to East Oakland and build houses. So I grew up in a business. The phone rang at my parents' house. As soon as I was old enough to carry a tool, you know what Dan was doing on the weekend. He was working. And if I wasn't living on the playground, I was working. And I was a basketball guy, ONBL, OAL. I spent so many thousands of hours playing ball. And I would like to say that the Oakland Recreation Department was a big part of my life. And when I was growing up, Oakland Recreation Department was known as one of the best departments in the country. So you all know about Bill Russell and Veda Pinson and all the people who came out of Oakland. Well, the year I played at Skyline, we had 5 teams in the top 20 in the state. Of course, at Skyline, I think we won 1 game, and we dropped out of the top 20 pretty quickly. But living in a business, growing up in a business, having the phone ring, you know, and then I went to Cal and kept working for my folks. And I was actually doing political work for a while because I wanted to do something else, something more professional. And my dad had a heart attack. Well, the filial son returned to run the business. By that time, most of my friends were attorneys or CPAs or whatever, and they were like, hey, why don't you be your own boss? You have a business. So I kept working for my dad. In '92, I bought it. My dad gave me 2 weeks. He said, you want the business or not? There was no, my dad was kind of a you do it or I do it. We're not going to do it together, old school guy. So he left me with 2 old trucks, and we were down on down on 23rd Ave near Telegraph. You'll know Sweet Jimmy's was across the street. Lou and Ray's was a bar on the corner, and that's where our business was for a long time. He kind of let it run into the ground. You know, I'll just say we were a union for a long time, and there was a strike in the 70s, and a lot of the smaller guys, like my dad, got out of the union. So I grew up around union electricians, and I learned from them. I also learned that when my dad would say, what are they doing out there? I'd say, if I think on them, I'm never going to learn anything because they're not going to tell me anything. They're going to send me to go look for a tool that doesn't exist all the way across the building. So I would just say that for me, I didn't have the nerve, so to speak, to start a new business like other speakers did. They made choices to start a business. I grew up in it. And at a certain point, I did make a conscious choice. And what happens when the light goes out? Society kind of slows down pretty quickly, right? If you don't have power, electricity. So over the years, I've kind of learned to celebrate what we do. And I've lived a very local life. I have a son who's 28 now, and he happens to be working for me. And part of my conversation is there another generation for my business? Like, would I want this life that I've led? And Oakland's given me a lot. You know, I've had a business. I employ 26, 27 people. There's 60 or 70. Well, that's a little exaggerated. Maybe 50, 60 people who are family members. And I would say that, you know, when you run a business every day, what you deal with is kind of the weight of that. You know, if I think about it, I've made 1,600 payrolls since 1992 or more. And we have retirement, we have quality of life things that we try to give to our people. So there's 2 things I go. One is, what it's like to be in business now, and it's different. I moved from 23rd to 24th Ave, the old CP Hunt building, if you've been around Oakland, down to 2406 Webster. And things got really busy, and the property appreciated, and we moved out to we sold, and we now, because it was just, the city didn't really necessarily want, it's the point I didn't think about, you know, there's been a big conversation about whether they want construction businesses or auto repair businesses in the downtown area, because it was supposed to become a nightlife, a residential business, and a lot of people have moved out. And so I thought, yeah, it's probably time, and that's when things were really busy, right? Crazy busy downtown. And I actually was remodeling my house, and I moved to build a shop, and I lived there for a year and a half while my house was being redone, and I would hear all that activity, people going to different bars and stuff, and I also hear them laughing as they walked to their car and crying as they saw their windshield broken into. You know, so it's very present for me because I have guys out in the field every day, and we have trucks, And I did not have to worry about the theft that we have to worry about now. I have GPS on my trucks. I have ignition kill switches. They tow them away. If my guys leave their doors open for a few minutes, their tools are gone. So there's a weight that my employees have to think about just to do their work, right? And I can remember working all over the city. I'd be out in East Oakland somewhere, and I was the working guy. People didn't really bother me. Like there could be 6 guys on the street slinging, and they'd say, "What are you doing here?" And I'd say, "I'm fixing." I never got bothered. I never felt, I always felt like there was different things going on, but people left me alone. I'm not a small person. That might have helped a little bit, but I really don't think that I would drive up, and I really don't think I ever thought I could be in danger here, or I have to think about my stuff getting stolen. So like when I deal with the city now, I can, these are just a couple of jobs that we're working on now, but I just wanted to, we already saw pictures of trash. This is Home Depot. They're spending $250,000 putting in a guard shack. That's 10th and Oak. My supplier's been broken into 3 or 4 times in the last couple of weeks, and they've now fortressizing their building and parking cars in front of all their gates. And this is our building. You may recognize that building. I bought it from some friends of mine who were in the steel business. Those turtles have been up there. You can see them from the freeway on 23rd Ave. And that's the 4th door I've put in. And those ballers were put in because within 3 months of buying it, they'd driven through our doors twice, $150,000, and our insurance was canceled, and we really had a hard time finding new insurance. So I'm over here coaching Little League, coaching soccer. I have 1 son, being part of the recreation department process. I was on the board of the Ricky Anderson Field because of baseball. We helped to get the soccer field at the international school built. A lot of those kinds of things. So I would just say that, I'm talking too much, sorry. But I would just say that, as part of the working, I get my permits. I know the folks down there. I've been dealing with that a long time. I know the inspectors, we have a reputation. I bought a business that had a reputation, and I really tried hard to honor that and honor my parents by running a good business. But we just finished that project that you mentioned, and I like doing work. So for us, we do work. We make people's lives better. I tell my people, we go to your house, you need the light fixed, we fix your light, we do your remodel, we help your business do better, right? It's very tangible. It's very like, hey, now I can go to work. Now I can have that light that I needed, or my kitchen works better. So I have a lot of satisfaction, but my people have to work knowing that their livelihood, their tools, they could be costed. I had a guy get in a fight the other day, and the guy attacked him and bit him on the neck. And crazy stuff happens. And we also have the trash. My employees, it's hard to get them to come to work sometimes because there's prostitution right at 12 o'clock in the afternoon where they're trying to go into their building. So I would just say that I'm on the Parks Board because I want kids to have the same opportunities I had. When we work on measures, when we get a park working, I would like the city to consider how to translate the efforts that citizens do to make things better, whether it's Measure Q or some project, the creek restoration that we're involved in. And we get a lot of support, and there's a lot of good people in the city working on those projects. But I feel like there's a disconnect in kind of managing the money that's given to the city or that we raise, because we have a lot of projects. We're tree planting out in East Oakland and West Oakland. So I want to connect the fact that we do work in people's homes and businesses with the fact that the people are trying to live their lives in these neighborhoods and they're having the same challenges. We've seen that already. And Oakland's been good to me. It's my city. And when I think to myself, should my son take this over, that's a challenge. And when I say to myself, when I traveled around the country, and I was from Oakland, I never had a problem saying, I'm from Oakland, and you don't know, right? You just don't know. It's different now. It's really different. So I would just like all to celebrate being Oakland, but recognize that going to work every day and living your life needs to be connected with the policies and the practices. So I'll leave it at that. That's most of what I want to say.
Dan, I want to ask you, as far as the synergy between the work that you do and the longevity that you've had, and then your participation in the Parks and Rec, like at the end of the day, like which is more compelling for you?
Well, I've kind of come to expect that my team's going to do good work. To me, it's more compelling about how we live. And my grandparents walked around Mosswood Park. I did my first clay bear at Mosswood Park, right? And I think that when we go around the city as trying to do parks thing, what we're really hearing is people can't use their parks. They're not clean. They feel that they're dealing with unhoused folks, they're dealing with safety issues, and the parks are not being used, or they're just going fallow because there's no money to keep them up. There's been a lot of conversation about Oakland ballers right now. Well, that's cool, but I know that 15 years ago, the city spent $3 million on Raimondi Field, and it never really got used. And then MAC didn't use it the way they were going to use it. The drainage wasn't good, and I know the people who were in charge of that from a community perspective who helped spend that $3 million. So I don't want to see Oakland spend money that is not maintained. Who remembers all the roses they planted down on Broadway? Jane Bruner, big deal, $450,000. They were dead in weeks, months. We're planting all these trees. We're having trouble getting the city water the trees. And this is trying to deal with environmental inequity out in West and East Oakland, where we're trying to plant trees to build a better canopy for heat and environmental stuff. We need to be supported because that's where we live. That's where you want to take your kids to the park. We've heard that from the very, earlier, that we want to be able to go to our parks wherever you live. It should be the same experience. You should be able to go and enjoy, celebrate your neighbors, have fun in whatever way you want that's respectful of everybody else that's using the park. So to me, it's really parks because that's where we live. We all work to make a living and we get satisfaction out of it to a certain place, right? But where we really live is at the end of the day. And as a business owner, I've learned that I'm on 24/7. I don't really take vacations like I should, but knowing that my employees are out and they're having a good time with their family and they're able to do whatever they're doing with their kids or their loved ones, or if I can give them a break if there's been a death in the family. As a jefe, as a lot of my guys would call me, right? Because that's part of what I've learned is to take satisfaction from. But I really feel good when I don't go down East 12th and it's just a mess, or that my people don't even feel like they can go to work. That's a problem.
Yeah, one more question.
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Sure.
My name's Neftali Rosal. I'm also a small business owner here. I'm just wondering if you have any ideas or any takeaways for the city, to continue this conversation so that, it's great that we're doing this, but we want to make sure as business owners and as community members that it doesn't stop here. So from your perspective, how do we work with the city, continue to work with the city, and continue to gain traction and make sure that the conversation continues so that we can make
with
changes?
security and after the pandemic, I used to go in and just talk to the inspectors. Now it's a whole process to get to people. Now I know them so I can call them, but a lot of people who don't, or maybe just starting a business, they can't call the electrical inspector on a cell phone and say, hey, can you help me with this? Or they can't call. It's much more bureaucratic. For whatever reason, and I think it's and I think that there's a lot of really good people we deal with in the city, and they're helpful, and they will they'll help work with us. But the disconnect between what your job might be and how people are living. Like if I had to say anything to say is that I tell my guys when we go to somebody's house, they may have thought about that project for a long time, and when we go in there, we can't just say it's another day at the job, right? Because for them, that's everything. That's the time they spent to have a dream, to have a new kitchen, or to do a light, or expand their business. And my folks can't go in. I don't want to have them say, it's just another job. I don't want to find their tools on a new hardwood floor. I want them to respect the people that are bringing them in. And, as a poli-sci guy, what do cities do? They provide services at their most basic level. And when if the roads or potholes are filled and everything's working, you got a happy bunch of citizens who love the city, right? So I would say that's the biggest thing. I think there's a disconnect, whether it's money or this distance that's kind of been created because of security and pandemic. And I would also say there's I was a young guy. Now I'm 67. I don't know how that happened. I kept eating, I guess. But, I think it's different to recognize that the environment is different. Even though the city is, from a population perspective, maybe not that different, but the folks, and I'm not a big, Gen Z versus Gen Y and all that kind of stuff. I don't think it's really productive, but it's real, right? So recognizing how, as a city person, that may be the 15th person you talk today, but for them, that's a big deal. They just waited 2 hours to talk to you, and don't, try to help them. And some people do that better than others. And I would also say coordination. Some departments just don't know what the other department's doing. We're going to do this project, and there's another study coming out, but Public Works is doing this, and Rec Department is doing that, and they're not even talking to each other. So as what we're doing now is we keep an eye on that kind of stuff. But I would say that to talk, as a cultural thing, when I grew up, I played empty gyms, right? Oakland is not the first time that we've had challenges. And I know things are cyclical, but I always felt, whether I was watching Soul Beat or Soul Train, I was Oakland, even though it was hills versus flats, like we all know it. And there was a lot of different things going on. But because I worked out in people's homes everywhere, I kind of felt different. Because I was in people's homes. This is where they lived. So I would just say that connection needs to be fostered. And I'll stop talking.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dan. That was amazing.
All right, everyone, let's give another round of applause to our 3 speakers today. And for yourselves for being such an amazing live studio audience. Thank you. I want to also thank my colleagues who are here. We talked about access, and we talked about the commitment of the folks who are not just living in the city, but those who are working here. And I have to say, after a year of being here working at the City of Oakland, I've learned a couple of things. The first is how much talent and dedication and commitment the team here who works at the city to serve our community have. And so I just want to thank you all for being here and the work that you do. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to get to work with you. Yeah, give it up. That said, there is a lot of work to do, and we can't do it without the partnership of our community members. Everything from our Parks Foundation to our community-based organizations to our residents who are out there helping to clean up the streets and steward our community. I invite you to continue the conversation. The work doesn't stop here. I hope you've left inspired. I know that I've had a really good experience working with my colleagues and with the community at the City of Oakland. And when we work together, we can be great. And so let's go be great. Thank you so much again for joining us. Oh, there's one more slide. All right. A supersized thank you as well to our friends at K-Top. Thank you, K-Top, for making this possible.